Yeah, I'm going to guess that the answer isn't exclusively buried in leadership books, of which there are so many. So I'd love to explore what you see HR's role being in fostering that, like, excellent leaders.
So I think similar to a coach or a mentor, HR's role is about facilitating the growth of leaders. So identifying in any given company, who are the great leaders who are naturally gifted at people and can have those conversations and can inspire, and can engage and can motivate.
This episode is brought to you by Instant Impact. Instant Impact provides transformative talent solutions to small and mid-sized companies that are making between 30 and 500 hires each year. If your recruitment's giving you a headache and you don't know where to start, then give the team at Instant Impact a call or visit www.instant-impact.com for more information.
Hello and welcome to We Need to Talk About HR. I'm your host, Felix Mitchell. Now, the power of leadership has been proven time and time again by study after study. McKinsey found that businesses led by those with a growth mindset outperformed others by 2.4 times. Forbes found that empathetic leaders significantly boost employee engagement and also business innovation. And EY, just to round it out a little, found that organizations that are led by human-centric leaders can double the success rate of transformation programs. So I think that means that the right leadership mentality and the right leaders in an organization is one of the most powerful and impactful tools that we have at our disposal. Of course, the wrong leadership and the wrong leadership mentality can pose an existential threat. But what's HR's role in setting and nurturing leadership? That is what we're going to be talking about today with our guest, Lewis Morgan. Lewis is a senior HR BP at Atrium Underwriting and a shadow board member at City HR. He's been in and around HR since 2012, so we're going to have a wealth of different experience to draw on today, and hopefully some of what to do and what not to do as well. Lewis, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you, Felix, for having me on today and inviting me.
Absolutely. So I think we can all pluck from our memory and experience the difference between bad leadership and good leadership. But what? This is a big question to start with. What's the difference between good leadership and great leadership?
It's a fantastic question, and like you said, quite a tough one to answer. I think when you look back at anyone's own career, your career, my career, think about what the best leaders in your life gave you. There was the space to talk about things, whether that be difficult things or nice things, the ability to really have the freedom to be autonomous in your role as well. And even if you are an administrator or you're doing something really clerical, or being able to have that autonomy is one of the most fundamental parts of great leadership, and that is facilitated by great leaders, being pushed and developed to reach your full potential. Because I think everyone has potential, but different people have different, motivators to unlock that. For some people, it might be money. For other people, it might be the ability to climb a particular career ladder. And a good leader will pull all of that out of you, in my opinion. And on the inverse of that, a bad leader does all the opposite things to that. And hopefully, not very many people have experienced that. But if you have, you can understand the stress, the anxiety, and it doesn't just pervade your working life. So no one goes home after their 9, 10, 11 hour shift and think, oh, that's just my work done. If you've got a really poor leader, you can see the impact it does to your own mental well-being, sometimes your physical well-being as well. And that can be really disastrous, not just for you, but also the company, also the people that around you that you love and care for.
Yeah, your family. It's so often you take out your, sadly, you take out your work stresses on those who you care for the most.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that just thinking about that for a moment really puts into contrast, or puts into the light why it's so important to have good leaders. Because when you have really great leaders, you go home with more energy, more gumph really to get through your day and to have a fantastic career. And who doesn't want that?
Yeah. I think back, as you say, my own career, my own life, and it's sometimes just so obvious who's an amazing leader, if it's almost as if it's part of their identity and they kind of carry almost like an energy around them that picks everyone else up. Can leadership be taught?
Absolutely can. But what I would caveat that with is that if you want to be a good leader, you have to want it. Essentially, if you don't want to be a people person, if you don't want to have difficult conversations, if you don't want to do some of the tougher stuff that comes with all the amazing stuff of being a leader, then you're never going to be a great leader. You have to want to be coached. You have to want to be, mentored. And that is difficult. I always say that being a good leader is all about having hard conversations softly. So things are all well and good when the end of year performance is fantastic, the bonuses are great, you go, here's your letter, here is X amount of pounds because of all the amazing hard work you've put in at the end of the year. But then when the company's doing really badly, or you've got an individual that is sort of struggling with their performance, and you have to sit them down and say, look, the level of performance you're giving me at the moment is just not good enough, but I know that you can give me better, and this is how we're going to get there together. This is not just you having to go and work 6 more hours to get the job done. This is me being able to facilitate that learning for you, but you have to meet me halfway. And that is a conversation that is not easy to do, but the only way you can do that is with reps. Leadership is a job, similar to recruiting, similar to underwriting, similar to being a nurse. And like any job, you have to give it time. You have to give it, thought to get better. And unless you do that, you're never going to be a great manager by yourself or without any intention.
I'm going to guess that the answer isn't exclusively buried in leadership books, of which there are so many. So I'd love to explore what you see HR's role being in fostering that, like, excellent leaders.
So I think similar to a coach or a mentor, HR's role is about facilitating the growth of leaders. So identifying in any given company, who are the great leaders who are naturally gifted at people and can have those conversations and can inspire, can engage and can motivate, but also seeing those people who have the potential to be there as well, and who might, with a little bit of coaching or a little bit more of an intention, might want to get there as well. Because some people have the skills but just don't know where to start, or don't know themselves that they have the skills to do that. So I think HR's role is all about facilitation, and that's not just sort of the old school, put you on a Henley business course for 2 days and hope you'll come back an amazing leader that can inspire millions.
Don't forget reading The 1 Minute Manager.
Of course, we can't forget Ken Blanchard now, can we? But it's also really just about identifying where those individuals are, and this is the sort of an L&D partner's role in a lot of ways, is all about seeking those individuals out who's got the potential to push the company from a leadership perspective to its full potential.
It's interesting that you started with identifying people with the potential to be great leaders, because I probably guess that the majority of people get into leadership roles as just like a natural part of career progression, right? They've made it to director. You're a leader now.
Yeah.
So would you recommend that people, that L&D practitioners, HR practitioners, business leaders, take more of an active role in identifying people with that capability of leadership, and then thinking less around, well, how do we bring you up the career structure, and more around what can we do to foster you as a leader of the future? And less wait until you get to that right level, and more let's figure out how we circumvent the natural career progression of the organization.
1,000,000%. I think it's that age-old problem, isn't it? It's that you have these fantastic, I'm in an underwriting firm, so let's use underwriters as an example. You have an amazing underwriter who writes lots of insurance products in any given year, very profitable for the company, but they are fantastically technically gifted, but actually as a people person, not that great. And then they get promoted because they're so good at their job, and then they start doing the job less and managing the people who are doing the job more. And then as they go up the ladder, they stop underwriting and they start leading. And then all of a sudden, like you said, they find out that actually this is something that I hate. I hate having difficult conversations. They fill me with anxiety. They fill me with dread. I don't know how to manage people. I can't read people. All of this sort of stuff comes out. Whereas my belief is that you can see a leader from a natural leader anyway, from really early on in their career. I think leadership is completely agnostic of where you sit on any particular hierarchy. I think leadership is all about demonstrating the skills to develop people, to be a people person, to really investing in other people, or to putting yourself first, in the words of Simon Sinek, there's a leaders eat last sort of thing. And I really, really believe that. So I think it's actually quite easy to identify where those leaders or potential future leaders might lie in your organization. So for example, if you have a pool of 6 assistant underwriters, and you have one of those that sort of is naturally sort of stepping up and sort of teaching the newcomers, if you have a new hire, for example, and they are teaching that individual just naturally sort of how to use the systems, how to sort of just embed themselves in the culture of the company, that is the person that you want to identify on your succession plan to be the next supervisor of that team or the next manager of that team, and just foster where that comes. But it's not just about looking at those who are natural leaders. It's all about how can we also make better the leaders that we do have, and using that talent as well.
Well, let's get on that. I'm really interested to see how we develop the leaders we already have, but really interested in this concept of identifying and fostering natural leadership talent, because it feels like it could be quite disruptive to an organization. What are the sort of, do you have to completely scrap the progression architecture to make that work? Let's say, I don't know, you find a junior underwriter who you feel has really got that leadership potential. Do you have to create a sort of leadership track to work within the organization? What are the practical steps that you can take, and how do you make sure you don't rub people up the wrong way?
It's a really good question. Actually, it's quite tough to accomplish.
You give us the answer.
So, one of the things that we've spoken about at Atrium is around sort of having 2 different lanes of career progression, if you will. So there is sort of technical experts, they're your subject matter experts who have a really deep, detailed knowledge of a particular product or a particular area of expertise. And then you have sort of like a track next to that, and that's where your people leaders are. So they are the leaders of that function who are designed or designated to, I guess, be the leaders of their teams. One of the challenges of that is that you then almost have 2 people who are on a similar footing seniority-wise. So does that look like a duplication of salaries and efforts of costs, etc.? So I think you have to be quite careful about how you would implement that in practice. But I think if you aren't a people person, or you aren't a people leader, or you don't want to lead, I think we need more honesty around that. One of the troubles is that is sort of the natural way to progress in your career. That is just how business works, capitalism works to a certain extent. So I think we do need to be quite disruptive to say, actually, these people aren't natural leaders, and probably, or honestly, don't want to be. It's just the package or the prestige or the job title that they want, more so than the actual the job itself.
It's really interesting. So 14 years ago or something, we set up Instant Impact. We set up as a intern and graduate recruitment business, right? Different organization now, but it meant we spent our time interviewing a lot of people who were just starting their career. You ask one of the sort of standard questions, where you see yourself in 5 years' time, and what do you want to achieve out of career? So I would say 90% of people, maybe more, said they wanted to be people managers.
Wow.
And I really strongly think that it was just this sort of, as you say, it's a prestige piece. Okay, well, that's how I see that I've progressed in my career. Not that I hold, more impactful client relationships, or I earn more money, or that I've become a really deep subject matter expert. It's the people, I'm in charge of you now. Yeah. And one of the things I've learned in my own career is I don't like managing people. It's really hard.
And we need more of that. We need more of that, where people are really honest and say, actually, this is something that doesn't interest me. And I think that's absolutely fine. And I don't think that at all should be career limiting. I think you should be able to have just as good career outcomes, whether your outcome is, your financial metrics, or whether that is just the direction that you travel and job satisfaction. I think that is more honesty would enable us to have better career conversations, and thus better outcomes for us as a business, to be able to say, actually, these are the people we want to develop, but that doesn't mean that it is a zero-sum game and you are the loser there.
Yeah, and I think what you've sort of said in it, and sort of reading between the lines a little bit more, is that when leadership's done as a side of desk activity, almost like a hobby, like an afterthought, it can be really hard to do really, really well.
Yeah. John Maxwell's got this really simple model called the 5 levels of leadership, and I really like it because it's a metric you can sort of measure your leaders by. You can measure yourself by it in terms of how good your leadership is. And the first one is about leading because of your job title or because of the place that you have. And he paints this really funny picture of when you're a leader at that level, people reverse park into their parking spaces so they can get away at 5 o'clock as quickly as possible. And I always think about that in terms of when you've got people who are at the lift at 5 p.m. each day, and it's not always about the leadership, but that is a big indicator of people just want to get out of your job. And if you're a good leader, I'm a strong believer that people will work harder for you, will work longer for you, and will generally just give you back as much as you give.
That's really interesting. I'll check that out because I haven't read that. Yeah, I love a framework. So
Me too.
let me paint you a picture. You're in an organization and you've got a couple of exceptional leaders, but you've got, I don't know, the majority of your business. They're okay. People aren't quitting because of them, but you've not got really high performance teams. You've not got the high performance culture. You've not got really a high performance leadership practice within the business. What can you do to develop those leaders into the people you want leading your business?
So the first thing I would probably do is understand those that are being led. What is it that they want from their leadership? So do they want more direction? Do they want more career conversations? Do they want generally more transparency about the nature of the work that they're doing, more autonomy? So exploration of what good leadership looks like for the people that are in your company is the first port of call. And I think you have to design a learning plan or a leadership plan around the needs of your business, because depending on the culture, depending on the strategy of your business, they will have vastly different, ways in which you might go about doing that. If you're really fast-paced, growth-orientated, you might need completely different things from a slower, sort of bigger underwriting firm, for example. And then I think you can tailor it depending on what those needs are. So you might look at sort of the more executive, and what that might do is, I guess, pull up some holes for you. So if you've got a particular level of leadership, so say middle management, and they're reporting back that they're all extremely stressed out, which is a really common occurrence because you've got them starting to look at more strategic projects as they move up in their career, but they're also getting involved in the operational day-to-day. So, and they're also that conduit through which that information flows up and down. So they've almost got this barrage of jobs from up, from down, from all around them. So they're normally where you find the most stressed employees in any given cultural survey. So it might be that there is where you need to focus your key parts. And the answer isn't always great leadership. The answer sometimes is actually less work. Sometimes that is the answer. But it may be that particular cohort are finding it difficult because they have recently been promoted to that position. They're still trying to figure out where they sit on the hierarchy, where they sit on the work. And maybe there needs to be some honest, some real conversations, and some maybe just care. Maybe an executive or a senior manager needs to go to them and say, I know you've got a lot on. What can we do to sort of alleviate this? And just have some more conversations. And sometimes that is all that's needed. And then away from that, it might be like an executive coaching program. It may be that there's not very much cohesion at the executive level, so therefore they each need a coach to be able to be better leaders from a more strategic perspective. There's a lot of work being done at the moment around multi-generational leadership and looking at the differing needs of those who are in Gen Z all the way through to the baby boomers who are starting to sort of exit have exited the workforce.
Yeah, so a lot there. On the coaching piece, I think that feels like one of the big tools you can use to change a leader's behaviors. Is that yeah?
Yeah.
Is that something that you always have to deliver with an external coach? Is that something that you can do with an internal program? What's the best way of affecting that change?
Yeah, definitely not just external. I think there is so much value in internal learning. Every company has got at least a few amazing managers. And I think by tapping into those and really understanding what is it that they do that's so good? Why is no one leaving their team? And why is everyone so happy in their team? And why does their team always happy to stay late if they need to get a big deadline over the line? And by asking those questions, then you then pick out some really fundamental and often quite obvious sort of key personality traits or behaviors that they will do. And that might be as simple as if someone comes to you and says, I really need to go to the dentist today at 10 o'clock. And they go, yeah, fine. You work hard for me. I'm going to give you, it's just about give and take. I think leadership is sometimes much these complicated models and frameworks that we have. Often it is just about an equal level of give and take. And if you feel as a leader that the give is a little bit heavier than the take, then you have that sort of tough conversation. So I've digressed slightly there from the coaching bit, but just to wind that back, I would say internal coaching programs are super effective as well, because you also have that rapport that's already built. It's quite hard to build not hard, but you might have to go through some chemistry sessions with a few external people. That costs time and it's money, whereas actually internal people already have a really good rapport with a new manager, potentially if they naturally come face to face in their daily workings. And that means it's just easier to be able to back questions off them. One of the problems with that is that you have the confidentiality issues.
Yeah, of course.
If they're talking about a particular person, you have to be quite careful with that, but you can work on the basis that what is said in any given room, if you have a one-to-one sort of framework, is that what is discussed is not taken outside of this room. And I think we need a little bit more trust when we do think like that.
I guess you need to give those internal coaches a bit of training or like a methodology that they can use rather than. So I guess the same thing is true, right? Just because you're a great leader doesn't mean you're a great coach.
Exactly that. And sometimes you can do that by stealth, because some leaders will naturally be like, I can sort of see, or we can work out where those development points will come over times when we have these, targeted conversations. But other leaders will need some steering. If they're a really senior leader, they might have a lot of experience in coaching and developing leadership, and actually might have a passion for it themselves. So it'll be a bit less, a bit easier to be able to get them onto a program like that. But it does need some thinking about how you, orchestrate who meets with who to make sure, like you said, there's chemistry between the two individuals as well.
So far, just to recap where we're at. So we both agreed that the leadership's important, and that HR's role within it, it's a fewfold: identifying potential leaders of the future, developing the leaders that are already within the organization, and doing that through providing coaching and then providing, I suppose, the heavy lifting of the development plans, making sure that they're aligned to the organization. Any other resources that you found to be particularly useful for HR to provide to the business's leadership?
Yes, I think it's probably important that HR are the ones that are also having those hard conversations with individuals that don't want to manage or are struggling with it big time, because I think that you can go through a whole career sort of leading or managing people, but enabling, a culture of trust that HR has a massive part in facilitating. If you are doing that and you say, look, are you enjoying this? If there's a particular manager who has got lots of grievances or staff are just particularly unhappy, high attrition area, then it's worth a conversation with HR to say, actually, is this something that you want to do? And if it's not, if they feel like they trust you enough to be honest with their opinion, and they say it's not, then I think there is a job for HR to do around organizational design to say, actually, how do we solve this problem, especially if it pervades quite a few number of departments in your company. And again, that is quite disruptive. So I appreciate that is a lot of work to redesign the department in terms of that. But I think that if we don't do that, we're not going to solve the problem which we have. We know we have a massive leadership gap in this country, which is costing us billions of pounds. The CMI have done lots of research on this. We know that is the case. So unless we stop doing what we are doing and start doing something disruptive or innovative, we are never going to catch up to some of the economies that are doing much, much better than us.
That is really interesting. And I guess to the point around people that aren't good managers, leaders, I generally find that people don't like doing things that they're not good at.
Sure. Exactly that. And I think we just need to own up to that, you know. I mean, there's always that balance, isn't there, between building on your weaknesses or developing your strengths further. And I sort of sit on the middle of the fence on that. But I think if you've got a leader who is clearly not engaged in having difficult conversations, despite you putting them through coaching, despite you putting them through expensive business courses, despite you having sometimes a stern word and say, if you don't sort this out, then you have to take things formally. If they're still not engaging in that, then you have to look at that and think, they clearly do not want that. But if they are fantastic in any other given area of their job technically, then let's just pivot and say, actually, maybe this isn't for you, and let's give this to someone else without you having to be the loser in this game.
Now, I imagine there'll be people who are listening to this and they've got, someone in their organization that they can't stop thinking about Jerry.
Yeah.
Always Jerry. And they're just thinking, dude, I want to do all this with him, but I just don't think it's gonna work out.
Yeah.
When do you identify, when is the right time to identify that it's actually the right time to replace a leader with all of the pain and complexity that brings?
Yeah. So I can't sit here and talk about leadership if I don't sort of be clear that it's a 50-50 journey. So I think we as companies, as HR, have to be really confident that we have done everything that we can to develop that leader or put them in a position where they have the tools to be able to be an effective leader. But despite that, some people will just either don't want it or don't have the skills to be able to do that. And I think that's where we need to say. So once we are confident that we have done enough or as much as we can as a company with the resources that we have, that might be cost, that might be time, that might be efforts, then we need to say, actually, what else can we do here? Can we pivot to a more innovative solution where we have sort of our SMEs, subject matter experts, and then we have our leaders? Can we just put you on the side and you just do your trading or your recruiting, or you just do that for your job with no loss of earnings to you? Because that a lot of the time that's what people are concerned about. And let's just recognize it's not demotion, it's not sort of any negative thing. It's just about recognizing where your skill set lies in the organization.
Yeah, but we got through all of that.
Exactly. Yeah. But and sometimes that is what's needed. And actually, let's put someone in that role that can do that job, I guess, more effectively and wants it.
Okay, that's a good answer. I can't believe it looking at time, but we are getting towards the end. So I'm just gonna round us up with a question on the sort of intensity of the world around us at the moment, because I feel like there is this. And before we started recording, we were talking about technological change, right? And we were talking about all the cool, exciting things about ChatGPT and all these cool things like Lovable.dev. But everything's changing all the time. There's huge pressure on organizations right now to adopt new tech, to adopt new operating models, to adapt to the reality of the world economy right now. And we're talking at a time where President Trump's chucking new tariffs left, right, and center, natural disasters. I mean, you name it.
Yeah,
it seems to be happening. Where does leadership development fall in the priority list of all this craziness that's around us all the time?
It's a really good question, and I have probably not the most frequent view on this, I guess, but I think change is just the only constant we know. We have always gone through change, with whether that be introduction of computers or social media, or now we're looking at AI and all this stuff that you mentioned politically, geopolitically, that is going on. There is just always change. There's always a new trend, there's always a new fad, there is always a new thing that is going to come along and disrupt what we're doing in some fundamental way. And I think how that relates to leadership is that we just need to be resilient to that change, recognize that I think what is different now is the speed at which that change is happening. And you have to either get on board or you're going to sink. I think essentially you need to be open to change, be not just reactive but proactive to change. Talking about sort of AI earlier, and actually the early adopters are the ones that are going to be super comfortable when this stuff becomes just as mainstream as the internet is today. You know, we were talking about earlier how I use ChatGPT to make like personalized development plans so you can speak into it. I've got this really highly engaged manager, but they're also getting some feedback that their responses to questions are really blunt and sometimes are dismissive of an individual's opinion. Write me a 12-month learning plan for that person. And the more prompts you put in, the more you get out of it. And that would take an only partner or a business partner potentially hours to make. And it will pull that out for you in 30 seconds. So I think we just need to be clever about how we're using this technology, jump on board with it, be resilient to change, be proactive to change, look at what is out there, what the sort of the most innovative companies are doing. PwC, EY are writing lots about all of this stuff, how the blockchain might be used in future to make sort of, I guess, crypto or blockchain based CVs. So it's almost like fortified proof of your history and your background screening. So you can carry that like a CV passport sort of thing. Really interesting stuff. And I think managers just need to make sure that they are on top of this stuff. And that is the job of a leader, to make sure that you are reacting to that change, being proactive to that change. And that is just about building resilience, really, which can be done in quite a few ways.
I guess to bring us full circle, that's just another lens to look at your leaders through, right? Maybe
100%.
Because that is, you have to have your early adopters in leadership positions, or else that's never going to seep through the rest of the organization.
Exactly that. Yeah, the early adopters are the ones that are on board with the change as early as possible, and they're also the change agents, if you will, the ones that will bring all the skeptics on board. Especially when you're looking at growth strategies, there's sort of fast-paced organization. It's those people, the early adopters, that are going to really be the ones you need to lean on if you're a senior leader to get that change over the line, whether that be adopting an AI, or whether that be a new system, whether that be a buyout of a company in its largest form.
So I wonder if you could just cap us off by telling us about the best leader that you've ever worked for.
That's a great question. So I've been really lucky to have some fantastic leaders. My current boss, Lisa, I have to have a massive shout out to Atrium while I'm here.
Of course.
Is a phenomenal leader. She leads by example, would not ask you to do anything that she hasn't done herself, and wouldn't go anywhere that she hasn't gone herself. It's amazingly inspiring, not just to me, but to the team and to the business that she works for, and holds all the principles of leadership that one can aspire to hold. In my earlier career, I had a fantastic leader who used to always talk to me about strategy, think strategically. And I used to think, what are you talking about? What does that mean? You keep saying this word, but I'm not entirely sure. And now I actually get it. It's a bit of a buzzword, but I get what that means. I think in the long term, thinking about how the, market forces impact what you are doing. And I think that was my first insight into thinking more, strategically rather than operationally or tactically. And again, she was amazing at helping me realize, take that step up from operations to strategy. So I've been very lucky.
That's awesome to have a leader early on who helped you step out of your day-to-day and think bigger, and then to have a leader today who inspires you, makes you feel safe, and gives you something to look up to in your next stage of your career. Lucky you.
Yeah, it's been fantastic, to be fair. And one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about leadership is because I've also had some poor leaders. And when you sit on the side of the fence where you know what it's like to feel stressed and anxious, whether you're doing a good enough job because that person didn't have the skills or wasn't given the skills to lead appropriately or greatly, it becomes this really sharp contrast. When you go between a really good manager and a manager that's not so great, you can really see how the difference generally, just in how the people that they manage are, how long they're willing to stay for you, how hard they're willing to work for you, and what they give back to you. So that's why I love leadership so much.
That really comes across. Lewis, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a fascinating conversation.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure to me. Thank you for having me on, and always happy to talk about this.
you.